Thank you for tuning in today to our devotional. As I announced on the promo, I'm going to be talking about living above the clouds. And I get these particular concepts and ideas from an experience that I had quite a number of years ago when I was returning home from an overseas missions trip. I was flying into the States and landed at Miami, Florida. And when we landed, it was approximately 11 o'clock in the morning, and the weather was terribly inclement. There was rain coming down, there was lightning, there were severe weathers predicted, and when I got off of the plane to make my connecting flight to my home at that time, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I was a little bit apprehensive over the fact that I had a very, very significant appointment at a little after 2 o'clock or somewhere around 2 o'clock that afternoon. We were in a building program, building a brand new church, and I was meeting with the architect and the contractor who was building our building. And when I noticed the condition of the weather, I just was concerned about whether or not I would be able to make it home in time for that very significant meeting. So I rushed to the gate where I was to connect with my next flight home. And I had no sooner arrived at the gate than there was a voice on the intercom that said that our flight was delayed because of weather. But they would announce when our flight would take place momentarily. I sat down and waited, and a few minutes later they came on line and said, well, we are going to board the plane right now because we have a narrow window of opportunity to be airborne. And so I was very happy, and I felt glad. I had a few mixed emotions because the weather didn't look any better. And I had looked out the window, and to be honest with you, I couldn't see any narrow window of opportunity to take flight. But I got on the plane, we sat down, and when the plane was loaded, the pilot taxied out to the end of the runway and turned the plane completely around. And to my amazement and shock, he killed the engine. And after all of that happened, he came on the intercom and he said, we're going to wait out here at the end of the runway and wait for that narrow window of opportunity. He said, we've come out here so that we can take advantage of every moment because the weather report is that things will get better quickly. And I looked at my watch because I was still concerned about getting home in time for the meeting. And I have to tell you, we sat there for the longest. People were complaining all around me on the plane about us being delayed at the end of the runway. I wondered why the pilot and the people that were guiding this situation would tolerate such a delay, because it was 1 hour and 18 minutes later before the pilot came online and said, everyone fasten your seat belts, put your seat backs in their upper order. He said, we're fixing to become airborne. And so we did. And I just want to tell you, the first few minutes of that flight when we was climbing through the clouds was a turbulent situation. It was one of the most fearful moments that I can ever remember experiencing, because as we were flying through the clouds, there was so much turbulence. In fact, at one point, some of the bins above our heads, where some of the luggage was, fell open, and people's luggage began to fall out in the aisleways. And it was a horrible situation. The people that were complaining before, while the plane was on the ground, were now praying and crying. And they were not ashamed to do it. They were praying and crying loudly. And I watched it in amazement. It seemed like an eternity. It could not have been very long as we were flying through the clouds, because I don't think the plane could have stayed together if it had been much longer. It was such a terrible thing flying through those clouds. But after a little bit, we climbed through the clouds and we got above the clouds. And I have not ever in my life seen anything that was more welcome than the scene above the clouds. It was beautiful. It was clear. And I looked down on those clouds beneath us, and I wondered how something that was so beautiful could hold such turbulence. But we flew on, and it was while we were flying above the clouds that I felt like God spoke to my heart as a way that only we can understand. The voice was coming from God. I felt like God was saying in my spirit, there are three places where people live their lives. Some people live their life under the clouds. They live with fear and worry and dread. They can see nothing but shadows and difficulties and challenges, and they're worried, and they cannot find peace of mind because they are living under the cloud. There are others that spend all of their lifetime living in the clouds, where there is constant turbulence, where they move from one problem to the next problem, one difficulty to another difficulty. They live in the clouds. Some people live beneath the clouds. Other people live in the clouds. But I want to live above the clouds. I felt like God was saying to me that there is a place in me that you can reach where you are above all of these threats and these difficulties and these worries and apprehensions. God is on your side. And if you can live your life above the clouds, you will find out that there is a place where the sun does not set, but it's forever shining, and you are living in the glow of God's wonderful blessings and God's anointing. So I would encourage you today to live your life not under the clouds, nor in the clouds, but above the clouds, so that you can enjoy the fullness of God's blessings. I hope this little lesson has been meaningful to you. And if so, why don't you just soar above the clouds and let God carry you to places you never dreamed about? May God bless you is my prayer.